Do you want to improve your communication skills at work? Then this video is for you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you 3 simple tips on how to do so. Number 1, understand. Number 2, keep it short and simple. Number 3, confirm and highlight. That sounds interesting to you? Awesome! Then stay tuned for the next minutes and enjoy the conversation. In this video, I'd like to talk with you about how to articulate well at work. Let's start right away with point number 1, understand. Does this sound familiar to you? You're talking to a colleague, and while your colleague is responding to you, you are already thinking about what to say next. This is called listen so that you can reply. But as you would like to communicate effectively at work, you just push this approach out of the window because it does not help you at all. Instead, you want to listen so that you can understand. According to Forbes, if you listen so that you understand, it just helps you in many different ways. For example, it ensures understanding and improves accuracy. Because obviously, you pay more attention to what your colleague is saying. Now, why is this important? You can imagine that everyone has a unique perspective on one situation. For example, one person might say, "Yes, this is awesome, this project!" And another person might say, "Well, it's okay." That's why you always want to pay attention to the opinion of your colleague to find out what is important to them, what is not important to them, and adapt your communication style accordingly. It means when you speak to your colleagues, pay attention to the overall situation, for example, to the words that they're using. And once you pay attention to the words, you can also have a look at the overall situation. For example, how is the body language? Is the person excited, anxious, confident, comfortable, or whatever? But just have a look at the overall situation by the words the person is using and also the body language that you see in that situation. You can reflect and adapt your communication approach accordingly and just mirror your colleague's words, communication style. Because when you do that, your colleague understands, oh, my colleague knows what is important to me and adapts to my needs. You might be saying, hey, of course, I'm already doing this, but somehow my colleagues, they don't listen to what I'm saying. What can I do in this case? Very easy. Call for your colleagues' attention and ask them, what do you think? What's your opinion on this? What do you say? And when you ask those questions back, you call them back into the conversation and you show them like, listen, you cannot sleep, you have to follow what I'm saying. Now let me summarize. When speaking to your colleagues, always remember to understand and pay full attention to what they're saying and how they're saying it, because it gives you important clues about what is important and of course, how to adapt your communication approach so that both of you can connect with each other. Let's move on to point number 2. Keep it short and simple. Growing up, I've learned that the more complicated a sentence, the smarter people think you are. But over time, I've learned that this is not the case at all. Because when you use complicated sentences, it is more difficult for your listener to follow you. You can compare it with walking through a labyrinth. Because when you walk through a labyrinth, everything is so complicated, you cannot do it by yourself. You have to have a guide with you or a map that shows you the way. And when you try out by yourself, it might take you hours walking through the labyrinth. And of course, it's difficult to remember the way. And the same happens to your listener. When you use those long and complicated sentences, it is difficult for your listener to follow you. Worst case, you might lose them on the way and they start admiring those beautiful walls in your labyrinth, or they start thinking about their to-do list once you're done talking. And worst case, they might fall asleep while you're talking. But as you would like to communicate effectively at work, let's just push this all aside. Let's avoid all complicated sentences. Let's avoid jargon or unnecessary complicated words, because you want to make sure that everyone in the room, that everyone you're talking to understands you. How can you do that? It's very easy. You focus on what is the most important point in your answer or in your message. And when you have identified that, what is the objective of your communication, you structure it as if you're talking to a 5-year-old. Attention though, it doesn't mean that you dumb down the conversation. No, it only means that you use very simple words that everyone in the room can understand, even a 5-year-old. When you keep your sentences very short and simple, you will see that everyone can follow you easier and remembers, most importantly, remembers your message. And that's the ultimate goal of communicating effectively, isn't it? Now, let me summarize. When speaking to your colleagues, remember to keep your sentences short and simple. Because when you do that, everyone can follow you and knows what you're talking about. Time for point number 3. Point number 3, confirm and highlight. Maybe this situation sounds familiar as well. You just left the meeting room and you thought that everyone understood what needs to be done. The next projects to be taken care of, or the next deadlines, etc. But after some time, you notice this is not the case, because everyone understood something completely different. And this can be very frustrating. That's why you want to create meeting minutes during the meeting, covering the 5 W's. What are those 5 W's? Very easy. What, where, when, why, and who. And when you cover those points, you can be sure that everyone understands clearly what needs to be done. When you confirm it at the end of the meeting, also make sure to send them out by email so that everyone is on the same page. It might be that it's difficult for your listener to pay attention to the most important items. That's why you want to use a never strategy and highlight important points. How can you do that? Very simple. You use specific buzzwords to show that this is important. You hear me? You can say, this is important. I want you to remember. Please take note of that. And similar buzzwords, because when you use those buzzwords, you can imagine that there's an internal alarm clock that starts ringing in your listener's brain that goes like, be-doo, 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 be-doo. I have to pay attention. And when you use that, they know, okay, this is very important for my colleague and I will follow this. Now let me summarize. When speaking to your colleagues, remember to take meeting minutes that cover the 5 W and to share those meeting minutes at the end of the meeting. In addition, you want to highlight important points using buzzwords such as, this is important, please remember. Let's just summarize all of the 3 points. To communicate effectively at work, there are 3 simple steps. Number 1, understand. Listen so that you can understand helps you in many different ways. It helps you connect with your colleagues and of course improve accuracy at work, which is the ultimate goal to communicate effectively at work. That's why Pay close attention to what your colleague is saying and mirror the same words or the similar body language when responding to your colleague. Number 2, keep it short and simple. Because everyone prefers short and simple sentences. Because obviously it is easier to remember the main message and of course to follow you. So remember, keep it short and simple. Step number 3, confirm and highlight. During a meeting, make sure that you cover the most important points, the 5 W's, through your meeting minutes and share those meeting minutes at the end of the meeting. In addition, you want to highlight important points using specific buzzwords, such as "this is important," "remember," "please take note of that." And when you do that, you can be sure that your colleagues remember your main message. Now, it is up to you to put all of those comments into practice, but before that, leave in the comments below what you liked or what you want to hear more of. I look forward to it. Then speak to you very soon and have fun. Bye. Recording. Ooh. Let's start. Shall we start? Yeah. Okay. Nah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I want to share with you 3 simple steps. Steps is a mix between tips and steps, but not good. Let's do it again. Steps. If your colleague uses a lot of stability. I think this is a weak example. No, I'm not going to use that example. Number 1 is, let me do it one more time. Yes. We are now at the end of this meeting. This meeting? No, we're at the end of this video. W